Hello, I'm Julia Ofer, a partner in the corporate team based in Dubai.
And I'm Carolina Orskowska, a junior associate in the corporate team in Dubai.
As part of our Middle East and Africa regional series, we're exploring the developments shaping the business, investment, and regulatory environments across the region by taking into account the present regional and global context.
Today, we would like to focus on another interesting aspect of this evolving landscape following the UAE corporate law amendments: corporate mobility and strategic relocation. Julia, we've been speaking to a lot of our corporate clients since the October 2025 amendments to the UAE Companies Law, and this theme keeps coming up. Many aren't just asking what changed, but why it matters strategically and how they could benefit. I recall the term corporate mobility was often mentioned. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yes, you're right. We had many discussions since the changes happened. I think it's fair to say that the October 2025 amendments weren't only technical tweaks, but they were structural. They're about where companies are registered, how groups are organized, and also how risk can be managed in the Middle East when getting the structure right. Corporate mobility generally captures an increasing ability for companies to move business, restructure operations, or reposition holding structures. I think three main trends we're seeing include relocation of holding companies, free zone companies acting as command centers, and redomiciliation as a structuring tool. There are many parties that can benefit from the changes, including large multinationals, family conglomerates, and investors. In essence, companies now see corporate location as a strategic decision, not only an administrative one. So moving location can bring real strategic benefits.
That's true. We see more and more instructions for groups relocating their holding companies to the UAE. The UAE has certainly positioned itself as a jurisdiction where international businesses can structure regional operations with a high degree of flexibility. Julia, from a commercial perspective, what is driving that shift?
I think it's fair to say there are three key drivers. First is substance and control. I mean, board, banks, and investors now expect for holding companies to be where decisions are actually made. The changes in the UAE laws, particularly in the last year or so, offers a jurisdiction where governance, management, and commercial reality can genuinely align. Second, the decline in pure offshore holding models. Traditional offshore holding jurisdictions are just becoming too hard to bank, harder to explain, and also harder to defend from a compliance and reputational perspective. The UAE is well positioned to facilitate regional trade and be a regional hub for many businesses. You may recall that we've published details last year about how UAE benefits from CEPA, bilateral investment treaties, and double taxation treaties. So having holding companies, with or without the related operational business in the UAE, now offers a credible alternative without forcing groups offshore. And being a UAE company comes with many benefits for international businesses. And third, this is where the law change really matters. The UAE Companies Law now gives holding companies modern shareholder and governance tools onshore and in the free zone. That removes one of the historic reasons people held assets outside the region.
So it's less about tax advantages and more about operational credibility?
Yes, exactly. Boards want stability, predictability, and a jurisdiction that investors recognize. So the October 2025 amendments were clearly designed to make the UAE a home for group ownership, not only a place for operating subsidiaries.
Okay, let's look further into UAE free zones. We often describe DIFC or ADGM as regional headquarters. As I see it, the amendments seem to formalize that role, and the change to the law, which confirms that free zone companies are UAE companies, might have a significant impact.
I agree with you. The fact that for the first time the law expressly confirms that companies incorporated in the UAE free zones are UAE national companies is crucial and brings lots of clarity. It means a free zone company isn't a second-class corporate citizen. It is a UAE company with UAE legal personality. For some parts, future legislation will still be needed to eliminate any uncertainty about specific UAE laws and whether they're applicable. But in other areas, such as the treaties, there should no longer be any doubt whether a free zone company can benefit from it.
But at the same time, free zones keep their own legal systems.
Yes, that's what I meant when I said free zone companies function as regional command centers. Back to your example of the IFC and ADGM, they combine UAE nationality internationally familiar legal systems, independent courts, and efficient company governance with possibility for regulatory ring fencing. That really makes them ideal to be holding company, regional headquarter, organizing management and strategy, treasury functions, and also IP holding companies. So you centralize decision making in governments in one place while operating commercially across the region.
That makes perfect sense. And I think we're also seeing that reflected in the recent clarification under the company's law, that where a free zone company is operating onshore, it needs to comply with the relevant onshore requirements. This is really helping to bring the onshore and free zone regimes closer together. When structured properly, I think it can actually be a very clean model, where you have strategy and control sitting in the free zone, revenue generating activities and execution happening onshore, and a clear compliance boundary between the two.
Indeed. And that certainty is exactly what boards and investors were asking for. We will see how this will develop in practice as we go along and further executive legislation will be published.
Julia, you also mentioned redomiciliation, which I see as a real game changer. Historically, moving a company inside the UAE was very complicated. I remember more than one matter where, as part of a group reorganization, we had to register a new company in a different part of the UAE, then arrange documents to have all business and assets transferred before closing the old company. These were very long processes and felt painful for everybody. I think a lot of this can change now when companies can be redomiciled between free zones and onshore UAE. Would you agree?
Absolutely, Carolina. Moving company registration between onshore and free zone and even between the Emirates without that same company losing its legal personality will make things a lot simpler. No liquidations, no asset transfer or novation of contract. This change in the law is not only a structuring tool, though, it can be a real risk management tool as well.
Could you give us some practical cases? What do you think we'll see most often driving redomiciliation transactions?
Hmm. I mean, first, regulatory or banking risk. If banks or counterparts become uncomfortable with a particular structure or jurisdiction, then redomiciliation allows a company to reposition without disrupting contracts or financing. Second, there is that geopolitical and regional risk. In times of uncertainty, groups can move holding entities into a more internationally familiar legal environment for investors, for example, into a financial free zone, or migration can be made from a higher to lower risk jurisdiction. All of that while maintaining continuity for the business. And third, there is the growth and exit planning. A company might start in a free zone, then re-domicile onshore to grow or to prepare for an IPO, to simplify multi-jurisdictional structures, or to align with investor expectations. So introducing the re-domiciliation possibility will give board and management more options to plan for uncertainty rather than only reacting to it.
So these changes facilitating corporate mobility can have a big impact. For general counsel, boards, and investors watching these developments, what would you say are the key takeaways?
I mean, first, UAE nationality now clearly includes free zone companies. That strengthens their legal standing and makes them viable holding and headquarter entities. Including such an entity into the corporate group structure or reconsidering how to make best use of it is really worth doing. Second, the way how I see it, onshore company is activity based and not only looking at where an entity is registered. Free zone companies can operate onshore after obtaining the appropriate approvals, but when they do, the company's law apply. That message seems pretty clear after the changes in the law. For many businesses, it may be worth undertaking a due diligence of own operations to avoid any non-compliance issues, while at the same time making use of the additional clarity provided in the law. And third, well, the redomiciliation gives companies a true structuring and risk mitigation tool. It's a practical, lawful way to manage regulatory change, growth, and regional risk without breaking the corporate chain or ceasing operations.
So the October 2025 amendments aren't just legal updates. I think they can be seen as a signal about where the UAE wants to sit in the global corporate landscape. I also feel that corporate structure is increasingly becoming a strategic board level issue, not just a legal one.
Absolutely. And the UAE is positioning itself well to continue functioning as a global hub for international business. Overall, these legislation amendments continue to reshape the UAE's corporate environment with meaningful implications for business operations, governance, and investment strategy.
We expect further developments as regulators refine the framework, and we hope to see greater clarity and alignment that supports both local and international investors.
If you would like to discuss how these developments may impact your business or investment strategy, please feel free to reach out to our corporate team across the Middle East and Africa.
We look forward to having our colleagues share additional insights in the upcoming conversations.